Hello everyone and welcome to Cinderful Gaming. I hope you're all doing well, I hope you're all staying safe, and most of all, I hope you're all fighting that war against the grey. Today's video is a Black Library review. In today's video, we'll be taking a look at one of the many publications brought out by a Black Library and giving you our thoughts on the book, audio drama, whatever it happens to be. Now, I will say that we will try to keep this review to as spoiler free as possible, though there will obviously be points where we talk about things happening in the book. We will try to keep away from saying any of the major plot points, so you can go and read this book for yourself. We'll just give you our thoughts on whether or not we think it is something you may be interested in. So we'll use this video to instruct you on maybe is this sort of going to be a book that you would like to see. With that all said and out the way, let's get cracking on. Let's talk a little bit about the book that we have reviewed this time. In today's video, we're going to be checking out Horus Rising by Dan Abnett, the first book in the epic saga of tales that is the Horus Heresy. Now, as always, I do like to listen to audios nowadays. I listened to this one and it was narrated by Toby Longworth. I've listened to a few of his and I really enjoy his narration for Black Library publications. It should also be said as well, this is me coming back to the Horus Heresy. For those who want to join the journey of me catching up on what I've missed out with the Horus Heresy, then hopefully, this can bring some insight. But I have read many of the Horus Heresy books previously. I think I got up to about Scars before I really fell off of the Horus Heresy. Just didn't get time to read, really. And, picking up audiobooks now, I'm like, you know what? With the Horus Heresy Age of Darkness coming out not too long ago, I should get back into the Horus Heresy and see whether any of these characters can evoke and really make me want to paint up that Age of Darkness box set I have sitting there and see what Legion I want to make. So with that all said, let's get cracking on into the review. And so, our story. The story of the Horus Heresy starts in the 31st millennium under the benevolent leadership of the Emperor of Mankind. The Imperium of Man has stretched out across the galaxy, reigniting old relationships and old alliances with many of the segregated and separated and, thought lost colonies of man across the galaxy. Now, in this golden age of discovery and conquest, it is now that the Emperor, on the eve of victory at the battlefield site of Ulanor, the Emperor decides to leave the front lines, entrusting the rest of the Great Crusade to his favourite son, Horus Lupercal. Promoted to War Master above all his other brothers, a leader among brothers, can the idealistic Horus carry out the Emperor's grand plan, or will this promotion sow the seeds of heresy among him and his brothers? And so, the book's purpose. This book sets up the events that will begin the Horus Heresy. This introduces to us many of the major players, none more so than Horus himself, but of course his generals, characters like Abaddon, Torgadon, and many others in there as well, along with other characters from other legions, definitely becoming, their first sort of look onto the battlefield, like Eidolon from the Emperor's Children, and many others. This really does start to show us many of the different myriad moving parts that set up the Horus Heresy, and it does leave us with questions at the end of it. Not everything is fully explained, and this book does leave you with plenty of questions on how particular things end up happening and where particular characters come from and about within the story. Definitely a great first place to start. This will expand upon in the coming books we look at. And so we look to characters of note. Now, there are tons of characters within this story. We get a look at something like probably about 15 different company captains of the Lunar Wolves, major players, including other Primarchs as well. But I thought the characters of note that this story definitely sort of works its way around, first of all, obviously, are Horus, Primarch of the Lunar Wolves and War Master of the Great Crusade, and then his Mournful, which is sort of his close inner circle of captains. A select group of captains that are sort of his first-hand advisors. These include Ezekiel Abaddon, first captain of the Lunar Wolves, Tarek Gadon, captain of the 2nd Company, Little Horus Axeman, captain of the 5th Company, Garfield Loken, captain of the 10th Company, who I would say is probably our main character of the story. We definitely follow his path more than anything, I think, in this. And then we've also got a couple of Imperial personnel. We have Kirill Sinderman, who is a sort of, I guess, a remembrancer that has a lot of information about him. Garviel Loken sees Cinderman as a mentor, someone who advises him, who he can look to for answers in text and scripture. We then have Ignatz Karske, a member of the Remembrancer party that sort of gets himself in a bit of trouble and Loken has to help. Euphrates Keeler, who is a major sort of player. She is a photographer. And then Mercedes Ollerton, who is Garviel Loken's personal remembrancer, doctoring and, talking about his stories, remembering his stories of the Crusade. What changes about these characters of note over the course of this story? For me, there's not an awful lot that changes with some of these characters. This is definitely sort of looking at the story as setting up the rest of the heresy. So we're going to see a lot more progression, I think, as we move through the heresy stories. Horus definitely comes to terms with being the War Master and what that sort of has to do with him, how he has to act. And, his captains sort of learn their place. So Garviel Loken is the newest member of the Mournful, and he learns his place inside that and learns his place alongside Horus's side. Meanwhile, we get to see how the Remembrancers sort of grow in their confidence over the course, and as they get to see more of the Imperium and more of the Great Crusade. What does this book do well, though? And for me, the best thing that Horus Rising, and indeed the first few stories of the Horus Heresy do, is adding the addition of the human characters like the Remembrancers. These characters really give us a strong first point of contact that we can latch onto into the Heresy. Without these characters, it would have been much harder to sort of connect with the Space Marine characters for later in the series. Obviously, the Horus Heresy is going to focus around Space Marines massively, but we do need to sort of get a grounding level, learn what a Space Marine is, learn who a Space Marine is. And if you're coming into any sort of Space Marine novel to start with, this is a great point because it really does show you sort of the difference in a Space Marine and a human, allows you to connect with the humans that then allow you to understand and connect with the Space Marine characters. On top of that, characters like Garviel Loken, who are much more humane in their mannerisms than other Space Marines, are really important to the story. Who would like this book? If you want to know, why Warhammer 40k and the Imperium, Chaos Space Marines, Chaos Demons, indeed, even things like Eldar, want to know sort of why and where they are and where they fit into the current galaxy of Warhammer 40k, this is the story for you. This is an exceptional look at so many different parts of the Warhammer 40,000 universe, the setting up of many different integral cogs within the machine. So if you want to know, your history, this is where to go for it. And so, in summary, this is a great first story in the Horus Heresy. It really gets you building strong relationships with the characters within its pages, really sort of getting you right into the narrative, the feel in the story. I honestly think this story in the Horus Heresy does not get enough love. People sort of forget, how early on with the story is, being number one, how good a book this actually is. This is, I would say, at least probably sits in my top 5 of all the Horus Heresy stories because it does such a good job of setting everything up for the other stories. Without, this book doing its job as good as it does, we don't get the other Heresy books hitting as well. For me, this is a solid 9 out of 10 book. This is one of the best stories in the Horus Heresy as it sets up so much. There are so many things in this that I forgot existed. Having listened to this or read this probably almost 10 years ago originally, which is a long time ago, but this hasn't lost any of its appeal at all. I love the characters. I got remembering reading about Euphrates Keeler, who my Dalmatian is actually named after. My Dalmatian is called Keeler. But yeah, this was really enjoyable to go back and listen to this. I'm going to be really excited to go through more of the Horus Heresy. If you've liked this review and you've liked chatting about Horus Heresy, let us know down in the comments below what you thought of Horus Rising, what you want to see from Horus Heresy content on the channel as well. And so that's the end of the video. Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Also, if you'd like to come chat more with me and other members of our little community here at Cinderful Gaming, you can do so in our Discord server, which is linked down in the video's description. Also linked down in the video's description is links to our Patreon and YouTube members, the best thing you can do to help support the channel. If you'd like to help support the channel, you can do so via those links in the video's description. As a special thank you as well to everyone who does, we'd like to give you all a shout out. So thank you to our Patreons: Christian Weir, Soren, Kenny Lyle, Alder and Shot First, Andrew Bowen, Nathan Fee, The Rising 8, Cure Dynamic, Anthony B, JJ Austrian, Average Wargamer, Domir, Mark Harvey, James Cater, Derek and Bloobs. And thank you to our YouTube members: Green Roots Gaming, Kenton Young, Ronya, Lockloric, The Johnny84, David Ellsworth, Wolfric Nick, Broken Chef, Ariana Edwards, Revenar, Pink Nico Fire, Robin Mankiller, Monty's Tabletop Terrain, and John Castle. Lastly, a special shout out to Lady Witchfox Art, who does all the amazing artwork you see for the channel. That's it for the video. As said, don't forget to like it, subscribe, and we'll see you all again next time. Stay safe, stay well, and most of all, keep fighting that war against the Grey.